I'm Riley Morgan. I just sat through a family meeting inside the Morgan estate, listening to my cousins laugh about how they're planning to raise the rent on tenants in a downtown building, without the slightest clue that I'm the person collecting their checks every month. Tomorrow, they'll find out exactly who's been running this so-called Morgan legacy from the shadows. And when that happens, the entire game will change. The Morgan estate stands high above San Francisco's Pacific Heights. Spanish colonial arches and pale stucco glow in the soft evening light. Red roof tiles catch the sunset, looking almost blood red from certain angles. Inside, crystal chandeliers drip gold across polished floors. Voices echo off marble walls, blending into a constant hum of polite laughter, name-dropping luxury brands, and the faint clink of champagne flutes. I'm standing near the grand staircase, holding a glass of sparkling water that's already gone flat. Everyone's dressed like they've stepped out of glossy magazine spreads. Shimmering gowns, tailored suits, designer shoes. And then there's me in a simple navy dress, hair pinned back, no statement jewelry, just a slim watch and my mother's old pearl earrings. I see the way their eyes flick over me, lingering just long enough to register my outfit, my shoes, the brand or lack of one, and then drifting away as if I'm barely worth acknowledging. My last name might be Morgan, but to them I'm still the poor cousin. I don't bother trying to force my way into their conversations. I've learned it's useless. The louder the room gets, the smaller I feel, and the more determined I become not to let them see the truth I carry inside me. Because the truth is that I'm not struggling. I'm not failing. I'm not the charity case they've convinced themselves I am. While they've been chasing headlines and flashing wealth for the world to see, I've been quietly building something real, something powerful. And tomorrow, I'm going to show them exactly who they've been underestimating all these years. My grandmother Eleanor Morgan used to say that true wealth whispers. She believed that money wasn't for showing off. It was for building security, for creating freedom, for helping people rise above the fear of losing everything. Grandma Eleanor was the only person in the Morgan family who ever truly saw me. She wore simple clothes, even as the matriarch of one of San Francisco's oldest real estate dynasties. She'd stand in the middle of her rose garden dirt under her fingernails, analyzing property valuations while pruning petals off the stems. She taught me that silence can be a shield and a weapon. And she taught me that the most powerful move you can make is waiting for the perfect moment to reveal the truth. I've been waiting a long time. I glance around the room and spot my Uncle Gregory holding court near the fireplace. He's wearing a custom Italian suit that probably cost more than my car. His voice is smooth and booming, trained for boardrooms and charity galas. Every time he speaks, people lean in closer. He's the unofficial patriarch now, ever since Grandma Eleanor passed. My cousins gather around him, their laughter sharp as glass. Carter brags about closing a deal for his company's new office lease downtown, never suspecting whose name is on the deed. Savannah's talking about her art gallery expansion, her voice silky and dripping with names of artists whose canvases sell for 6 figures. Logan's showing off new photos of his yacht, describing it as just a practical purchase for networking. None of them know that the apartment building where some of them live, the one they keep complaining about because of rising rents and lobby renovations, belongs to me. Or that the modest little consulting business they dismiss as my hobby is actually the facade for investments worth more than several of them combined. But they will, because tomorrow the Morgans are planning to vote to sell the family mansion. The same mansion that holds every memory I have left of Grandma Eleanor. The same mansion that sheltered me after my parents died when I was 17 and felt like my entire world had caved in overnight. The same mansion they now see as a stack of dollars waiting to be unlocked, torn down, replaced with luxury condos. I can't let that happen. I won't let that happen. And as I stand here watching the golden light bounce off champagne glasses and diamonds, I remind myself that sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one about to flip the entire story upside down. Uncle Gregory's voice booms across the drawing room, bouncing off the high ceilings and antique crown molding. He's got a way of talking that makes everything sound like a done deal, like the rest of us are just here to nod along and sign paperwork. I take a seat at the far end of a massive mahogany table. Sunlight streams through towering windows, catching dust motes swirling in the air like little flecks of gold. Gregory adjusts his cufflinks and clears his throat. Family. He begins with that same practiced charm that's helped him close 1,000 real estate deals. We have an incredible opportunity on the table. Developers are offering $58 million for the Morgan estate. A ripple of eager murmurs spreads around the table. Savannah leans forward, eyes gleaming. 58 million. That's more than they offered last year. Her diamond bracelet slides halfway down her arm as she gestures, sparkling like stars. Logan can't help grinning. That would be the perfect capital injection for the fund. We could leverage it into at least 3 more high-rise projects. Brooke, sitting beside me, glances my way with a worried look but says nothing. Meanwhile, Carter is drumming his fingers on a glossy portfolio embossed with the Morgan family crest. Plus, he says, voice smooth as butter, the developers have connections downtown. This could open new doors for the entire family brand. I keep my face carefully blank, though my pulse is hammering in my ears. Brand. That's all the mansion is to them, a brand. A symbol to be flipped for profit, stripped of every memory that makes it sacred. Uncle Gregory clicks the remote, changing the slide on the enormous screen behind him. An aerial rendering appears, showing the mansion flattened and replaced by soaring glass towers, with rooftop gardens and infinity pools. It's all sleek lines and sharp edges, so modern it looks practically sterile. Gregory smiles like a man unveiling a masterpiece. Imagine this. The Morgan Residences. 50 exclusive units, each starting at $7 million. Private spas, valet service, art installations curated by Savannah's gallery. A monument to the Morgan name. Savannah sits taller, smoothing her designer suit. Oh, I'd love to curate the art for the lobbies. It would elevate the brand image tremendously. Carter can't resist adding his own spin. And the penthouses would be perfect venues for networking events. Imagine the kind of clients we'd attract. Their voices layer over each other, overlapping like an orchestra of greed. Gregory lifts a hand for silence. I understand some of you may feel emotional attachment to the mansion, he says, glancing pointedly in my direction. But we must think like business people. This property has been underutilized for decades. It's time to unlock its true value. He lets the silence hang for a moment as if daring anyone to disagree. My throat tightens, but I say nothing yet. Because I know speaking up too soon would only give them time to prepare for my resistance. Instead, I listen as Savannah pivots the discussion back to herself. By the way, my gallery is planning a private event with the artist who just sold a piece for $8 million. We'll have to make sure the new condos have the right aesthetic to host similar gatherings. Brooke leans closer to me and whispers so only I can hear. Same script, different year. She's the only one who ever dares to quietly acknowledge how shallow all this has become. Carter suddenly leans back in his chair, stretching his arms overhead. So Riley, he says loud enough for the entire room to hear, tell us, what's new with you these days? Still, consulting. He drags out the word as if it's an exotic species he's never encountered before. Aunt Camille chuckles softly, tilting her head, her perfectly coiffed hair barely moving. Consulting is fine, dear, but have you ever thought about joining Gregory's team? There's no shame in leaning on the family network to build a real career. I grip the arms of my chair until my knuckles ache. Every year, the same condescension. They have no idea what I actually do. No idea what I've built. Gregory tries to smooth things over with another broad grin. Let's not embarrass Riley. Not everyone wants to be in commercial real estate. And besides, he pauses, giving me a look that's half amusement, half pity. Some people just prefer simpler lives. Savannah jumps in, flashing a smile sharp as a blade. Well, not everyone needs luxury. Some people are content with modest things. She says modest like it's a disease. Carter laughs. Hey, there's no shame in driving a Ford Fusion, unless it breaks down on the highway, right? I stare down at the table, blood rushing in my ears, determined not to show how deeply the words cut. Because the Ford Fusion has served me well. And because I'm not ready not yet to reveal that while they've been busy measuring life in sports cars and penthouses, I've been buying up the world they think they own. Gregory taps his pen on his portfolio, regaining the floor. Here's the timeline. The developers want an answer within 30 days. We'd liquidate the asset, split the proceeds proportionally according to family shares. I'll circulate the financial models this week. He makes it sound so clinical, so inevitable. As if tearing down my last connection to Grandma Eleanor is just a line item on a balance sheet. But the mansion is more than bricks and mortar. It's where Grandma Eleanor taught me how to read property maps. It's where she stayed up with me through endless nights, helping me survive the grief after my parents were gone. It's the only place that's ever truly felt like home. I glance around the table. Carter's eyes are already distant, no doubt calculating future bonuses. Savannah is texting someone beneath the table. Logan is grinning at renderings of rooftop pools. No one notices the way my shoulders square, the way my breath deepens. Because in this room full of power suits and family arrogance, they still believe I'm the quiet, harmless cousin. And that belief is about to become my greatest weapon. ChatGPT John Noy. The truth is, I started building my secret the same year my parents died. I was 17, and after the funeral, after the casseroles stopped arriving and the sympathy calls faded, it was just me and Grandma Eleanor, alone in the mansion. Some nights I'd find her in her study stacks of old property records spread across her mahogany desk, her reading glasses perched on the tip of her nose. She'd wave me in with a tired smile. "Come sit with me, Riley. Let's make sure you know how the world really works." She never spoke to me like a child. Instead, she taught me how to read cash flow statements, how to spot undervalued lots on zoning maps, how to follow public records and see who was quietly buying up entire neighborhoods. She'd slide documents across the desk and say, "Remember, smart money doesn't brag. It builds quietly, and it never underestimates silence." Those nights with her saved me. By college, while my cousins were throwing parties and booking spring breaks in Cabo, I was logging into city planning department websites at 2 in the morning. I'd pull spreadsheets hunting for neighborhoods where transit expansions were planned, where the city was quietly offering tax breaks. I didn't have much money. My inheritance was modest nothing compared to my cousins. But I started small, a crumbling duplex on the south side of the city that everyone else dismissed as too risky. I lived in one half, rented out the other, scrubbed the floors myself, learned how to replace a garbage disposal on YouTube at 3 in the morning. When property values climbed after the light rail extension opened, I sold it, doubled my money, and rolled every dollar into 2 more properties. Grandma always said the first rule of building wealth was patience. "The game isn't about who's loudest, Riley," she'd whisper while pruning her roses. "It's about who waits the longest to show their cards." I took those words like scripture. So while my cousins were trading stocks for quick wins, I was buying properties in overlooked corridors of the city, the places other investors didn't even bother visiting. I kept my name out of the paperwork, used LLC's layered ownership structures. Because in my family, if they smell success, they'll try to claim it or take it or tear it down. So I let them keep thinking I was barely scraping by. The years passed. 1 building became 3. 3 became 8. And now, I own 14 properties across San Francisco, plus 2 office buildings in districts the tech crowd has been quietly moving into. I've also invested in a small tech startup whose valuation just passed $100 million. My net worth has crossed $82 million. It's not the billions my uncle brags about, but it's mine, earned piece by piece, brick by brick. And I did it without a single dollar of Gregory's connections. But my biggest move, the one that took everything I had, was the building in Soma. A sleek, modern apartment complex with glass balconies and a view of the Bay Bridge. The building had come up for sale quietly off-market. The owner wanted to retire without drawing attention to avoid spooking the tenants. I'd been watching that building for years. I knew the foot traffic data, the rental trends, the development happening just 3 blocks away that would triple property values over the next decade. So I moved fast. Pooled every dollar. Used Mr. Sawyer Grandma's old attorney to help me structure a holding company. And I bought it for $28 million, which would be impressive enough on its own. But the real twist, that's the building where Carter lives, where Savannah has her penthouse, where Logan rents 2 floors for his so-called tech incubator. They've been living under my roof, paying rent to me, complaining about renovations and grumbling about modest rent increases that are still far below market rates. All this time, my own family has been writing checks to my holding company every single month, without ever suspecting who's behind it. And as I've listened to their insults, their casual digs about my so-called small life, I've kept my silence. Because I know the power of silence, and because I've been waiting for exactly the right moment to reveal the truth. Tomorrow is that moment, because now Uncle Gregory is planning to sell the Morgan estate, the place that saved me, and he's counting on me being the quiet, insignificant cousin who won't fight back. He's about to learn. I'm nothing like the girl they thought they knew. Morning sunlight streams through the arched windows of the Morgan Estate's grand dining hall, casting sharp lines across the polished floor. I'm already seated when the family drifts in, one by one, draped in cashmere and silk, clutching coffee in monogrammed mugs. There's tension in the air, like the static right before a lightning strike. Uncle Gregory stands at the head of the table, his leather portfolio open documents stacked in neat, threatening piles. He clears his throat, voice echoing in the cavernous room. Today he announces we're reviewing the financial status of each family member. We'll see who's contributing most to the Morgan legacy, and who's, well, coasting. His eyes flick briefly toward me before sweeping the room. Savannah folds her arms, leaning back in her chair like a queen expecting tribute. Carter's already smirking. Logan drums his fingers on the table, practically vibrating with anticipation. Gregory's assistant wheels in a large monitor. An enormous bar chart flashes onto the screen. Each bar is a different color labeled with family names. Uncle Gregory points with a laser. As you can see, our top contributors continue to be Logan, Savannah, and Carter, whose ventures have added significant growth to the family portfolio. He clicks to the next slide. And here, he pauses, letting the moment stretch painfully. We have the other end of the spectrum. There, at the far right of the chart, is a tiny sliver of a bar, barely visible. Under it, in stark black letters, Riley Morgan. A ripple of laughter slides around the table, quiet but unmistakable. Carter leans forward, eyes bright with mock concern. Hey, Riley, that's your bar right there, huh? I'd have made it bigger, but the software probably doesn't handle negative numbers. Savannah pretends to gasp, then laughs behind her manicured hand. Don't tease her, Carter. Maybe she's saving up for something big, like a used Prius. Brooke shoots me a sympathetic look. I fight to keep my face still. Because I want to scream. Because I want to tell them exactly how much I'm worth. But I'm not ready yet. Not until I'm sure how deep Uncle Gregory's plan goes. Gregory raises his hand, cutting off the laughter. All jokes aside, we have serious business to discuss. The developers have increased their offer for the Morgan estate. They're willing to fast-track permits if we decide quickly. He leans in, voice lower, confidential. This is our chance to transform this asset into liquid capital. We could reinvest in new projects, expand our influence downtown, acquire properties in Silicon Valley. His tone grows firmer. We can't afford sentimentality, not now. The market is shifting. If we wait, we lose leverage. His eyes flick to me again. And I know. This entire presentation is partly for my benefit. Savannah sits up straighter, tossing her hair over her shoulder. I love the idea of condos. The mansion's pretty, but honestly, it's outdated. It's time to modernize. Carter nods eagerly. Think about the networking events we could host in those penthouse suites. It would redefine the Morgan brand. I open my mouth, then close it again. Because if I speak now, I'll say too much. And I need them off balance. Gregory folds his hands on the table. There's another matter, he says. The building in Soma. He clicks to another slide. Photos of the sleek high-rise appear on screen. Savannah rolls her eyes. Ugh, don't even get me started. The new lobby renovations are a nightmare. The dust, the noise. It's like living in a construction zone. Carter adds, and the rent hikes. Seriously, they went up last quarter for no reason. Whoever owns that place needs a lesson in how to treat Morgan tenants. My pulse thunders in my ears. Because they're talking about ME. Logan chimes in, frowning. No one seems to know who actually owns it now. It changed hands through some holding company. But I've got a friend in the city planning office. He can dig into the records. Gregory steeples his fingers. I was thinking the same thing. We could apply pressure, code inspections, permit delays. There are ways to motivate a mysterious owner to sell. Savannah's eyes glimmer. Oh, I love that. We should absolutely remind them who they're dealing with. Carter grins. Or we could just buy the building outright. The Morgan name opens doors. I can't believe what I'm hearing. They're openly plotting to bully a property owner me into selling. Using connections favors even threats. Everything Grandma Eleanor despised. And all with the same breezy entitlement they use to order bespoke suits or reserve yachts for the weekend. Brooke shifts closer to me under the table. She whispers so quietly no one else hears. Riley, whatever you're planning, you'd better do it soon. Gregory clasps his hands together. I'll draft a letter. Legal, polite, but firm. Whoever owns that building should understand it's in everyone's best interest to cooperate. He smiles smooth as glass, then adds with one last glance my way. Some people just don't belong in this business. My throat burns with fury, but I stay silent. Because the time for talking is almost over. The next morning, the mansion feels colder than ever. Gray clouds press against the windows, flattening the golden glow that usually fills the grand hall. I stand in front of my closet, my hands trembling for just a moment. Then I reach for my secret weapon, a charcoal gray suit perfectly tailored, not flashy, but sharp enough to command the room. Grandma Eleanor's pearl necklace catches the light as I fasten it around my neck. I add pearl studs, the ones my mother wore to every important event she ever attended. Today is my important event, and as I stare at my reflection, I whisper the same words Grandma always told me. Silence is a shield, but sometimes it's also a sword. When I step into the library, the entire Morgan clan is already assembled. Uncle Gregory is pacing at the head of the table, shuffling contracts. Savannah, Carter, and Logan are all clustered together, whispering and laughing until they see me walk in. Then the laughter dies, because something about me, maybe the way I'm standing, maybe the set of my shoulders, makes them pause. I place my black leather portfolio on the table and sit down without a word. Gregory clears his throat. Let's get started. Westbrook Development has finalized their offer for the Morgan estate at $58 million. They've already drafted preliminary agreements for us to sign today. He's trying to rush it through, because he wants the deal sealed before anyone can stop him. Carter leans forward, grinning. Savannah and I were talking. We should negotiate for a rooftop garden in the new condos. Morgan branded, of course. It'll look amazing in social media posts. Savannah chimes in. And we'll need a sculpture in the lobby from that artist who sold a piece for $8 million last month. It's all about the brand experience. Brooke rolls her eyes and mutters under her breath, "The brand experience? Give me a break." Gregory gestures to his assistant, who begins passing out thick folders. These documents outline how the proceeds would be split. As usual, distributions will follow our established voting structure based on ownership percentages. My folder feels lighter than the others, probably because Gregory assumes I have nothing worth documenting. But I let him finish, because my moment is coming. Gregory sets his hands flat on the table. Now, about the Soma building. We need to resolve this ownership question. I've spoken with the city. They're ready to review permits and conduct inspections. That should help us pressure whoever's hiding behind those LLCs. He says it casually, as though he's not describing blackmail. Carter smirks. Seriously, if someone's trying to play in the big leagues without the right connections, they deserve to get squeezed out. Savannah laughs softly. Exactly. You can't just buy property in this city and think you're untouchable. My voice cuts through the room, calm and sharp as glass. I'd like the floor. Gregory blinks, surprised. Well, we're on a tight schedule, Riley. The developers. This won't take long. I stand. I open my portfolio, and the room goes still. I pull out a single sheet of paper. It's the updated valuation of my complete holdings. I place it in front of Gregory. Read it. He squints at the page, then his eyes widen. What is this? I keep my voice steady. My financial statement, as of last week. Savannah frowns. Financial statement, why would we care about? Because it changes everything. I step closer to the table. My net worth is $82 million. Gasps ripple around the room. Carter sputters. What? That's impossible. Savannah shakes her head hair, shimmering under the chandelier light. Riley, stop trying to impress us. That's not funny. Logan stares at me like he's seeing a ghost. Brooke covers her mouth, eyes wide. Gregory recovers first, voice sharp. How you've never been involved in any of our deals. You don't have the contacts. You don't... I cut him off. I didn't need your contacts. I reach into my portfolio and pull out a thick folder of documents. I've spent the last decade investing quietly. LLCs, holding companies, properties nobody else noticed, and the biggest asset in my portfolio is the Soma building. Savannah's mouth drops open. Wait, what do you mean the Soma building? I look straight at her. I mean, you've been living under my roof. Carter pales. Logan's jaw drops. I keep going relentless. I bought that building for $28 million. I'm the one who ordered the lobby renovations you've been complaining about, Savannah, and the modest rent increases. Those were mine too, and they're still well below market rates. I turn to Carter. Your luxury apartment lease, signed with my holding company. Logan stammers. So all this time, we've been paying you? Yes. A stunned silence swallows the room. Then Carter explodes. This is a scam. You've been hiding money from the family. You're just trying to embarrass us. I meet his glare without flinching. I'm not hiding anything. I was protecting myself. Because in this family, if you know what I'm worth, you'd try to control it, or take it. Gregory slams his hand on the table. This changes nothing. The sale of the Morgan estate is moving forward. You still hold only a tiny voting share. You can't stop us. A small cold smile curls at my lips. That's where you're wrong. I reach for the last document in my folder. It's thinner than the others, but infinitely more powerful. I slide it across the table to Gregory. Read that. He flips it open. His face drains of color. Brooke leans closer, breathless. What is it, Riley? I say it clearly so there's no misunderstanding. As of this morning, all my holdings have been transferred into the Eleanor Morgan Trust, a trust that just acquired 38% of the voting shares in Morgan Holdings, enough to block any major decision. Gregory staggers back half a step. That's impossible. You can't just buy that much control overnight. I lock eyes with him. Grandma Eleanor bought shares in a development firm decades ago, a firm nobody paid attention to. Over the years, I acquired that firm quietly and used it to purchase voting shares from family members who needed cash. Carter is shaking his head. This is insane. You've been, plotting this all along? I nod. Every year you mocked me. Every time you dismissed me, I was working, building, waiting, and now I own enough of this family's voting power to stop the sale of the mansion. Silence hangs so heavy it feels like the walls themselves are listening. Then Brooke starts to clap. Slow, steady. Well, damn, cousin, Grandma would be proud. I look around the room, at the shocked faces, at the people who thought they'd silenced me forever, and I feel something deep inside me unlock. A quiet power, a calm certainty, and I say for the first time out loud, the Morgan estate is not for sale. A hush lingers over the room like the moment after a thunderclap. Everyone's still processing what just happened, that the cousin they'd written off as insignificant just flipped the entire Morgan dynasty on its head. But I'm not finished. Because Grandma Eleanor didn't teach me to build wealth just so I could sit on it like a dragon on gold. She taught me that money is meant to be used. To protect. To uplift. To leave a legacy that means something real. I slide another document from my portfolio and place it squarely in front of Uncle Gregory. I'm not just here to stop the sale, I say, my voice firm but calm. I'm here to change how this family operates. Gregory looks at me like I've grown a second head. What are you talking about? I look around the room, locking eyes with each cousin, with Aunt Camille, with Gregory himself. Starting today, the Eleanor Morgan Foundation is officially established. Its mission is simple financial education for underprivileged youth in San Francisco and affordable housing initiatives in the neighborhoods this family has been profiting from for generations. Savannah blinks rapidly. And a foundation? Yes, I nod slowly. And it will be headquartered right here, in the Morgan estate. Instead of turning this mansion into glass condos, it's going to become a place where people can learn how to build real wealth the same way Grandma Eleanor taught me. Quietly, patiently, with dignity. Carter leans back in his chair, scoffing. Seriously, you want to run charity classes out of the mansion? That's a complete waste of prime real estate. I cut my gaze toward him, sharp as a blade. What's a waste? Is this family's obsession with showing off while people 5 miles away can't afford groceries? Grandma didn't build the Morgan name so you could brag about luxury cars. Gregory exhales slowly. Riley, that's noble. But a foundation doesn't make money. It's overhead. It's risk. This property could generate millions if redeveloped. I fold my arms across my chest. And yet, in 10 years, half those condos would sit empty because the market's oversaturated. Meanwhile, the Morgan name would be remembered as the family who demolished a piece of history for another monument to greed. I pace a slow circle around the table. I'm not naive. I understand business. I understand returns. But I also understand that true power is choosing to invest in people, not just buildings. That's why the Eleanor Morgan Foundation will not only preserve this house, it will produce real measurable social ROI. Savannah's voice wavers. And what exactly does that mean for us? I stop pacing and lean both hands on the table. It means we're restructuring how this family votes. Carter bristles. You can't just change the rules. I hold up a hand. I can, and I am. From now on, voting rights in Morgan Holdings will be tied to contributions into the foundation. Anyone who wants to keep their full voting power will need to commit a percentage of profits or time or both toward foundation projects. If you choose not to contribute, your voting share shrinks accordingly. The room erupts. Carter leaps from his chair. This is blackmail. Savannah shakes her head, mouth agape. Are you kidding me? I'm supposed to donate my art profits just to keep a say in the family business? Gregory slams his hand on the table. This is madness, Riley. The family's always operated under financial meritocracy. You want to turn it into some social club. I raise my voice above the chaos. The family's been operating under arrogance, under the idea that success is measured by private jets and Instagram followers. I'm done with that. Grandma Eleanor was done with that. I take a breath steady and deep, and I'm not forcing anyone. You can choose not to contribute, but you'll have less say in decisions that affect people's lives. Brooke rises slowly beside me, her expression fierce. I'm in, she says. I'm sick of pretending that luxury for luxury's sake is all this family should stand for. Grandma would want this. The room falls quiet again. Gregory's face is a storm cloud unreadable. Savannah sits back, crossing her arms, chewing her lip. Carter looks like he's about to explode, but says nothing. And Logan just stares at me, eyes flicking between shock and grudging respect. I let the silence stretch. Then I speak one last time, voice soft, but carrying through every marble corner of the room. This mansion isn't just bricks and history. It's the symbol of what the Morgans were supposed to be. A family that builds, not just for themselves, but for the city that made them rich. I glance out the window toward the rose garden where sunlight is finally breaking through the clouds. And starting today, that's exactly what we're going to do. Silence falls over the room, thick and fragile as glass. I feel every eye on me, some burning with resentment, some glimmering with something new. Respect, or maybe curiosity. I stand straighter, the weight lifting from my shoulders. Because for the first time in years, I'm no longer pretending. The meeting breaks. Papers shuffle, chairs scrape. Gregory stalks away, phone already at his ear, probably plotting how to salvage his influence. Savannah gathers her designer tote with trembling fingers. Carter storms out without looking back, slamming the door so hard a portrait rattles on the wall. But Brooke lingers beside me, her eyes shining. I'm proud of you, Riley, she whispers. I swallow hard. Thanks, Brooke, for always believing there was more to me. She squeezes my hand, then walks away, leaving me alone in the vast sunlit room. I drift through the mansion, my footsteps echoing across parquet floors. Grandma Eleanor once polished herself. My fingers trail along the carved banister, the velvet drapes, the faded edges of old oil paintings. Every corner holds a memory. Late-night cocoa with Grandma, tracing property maps on the dining table under lamplight. Standing in this very room, so terrified I'd never measure up. Convinced I'd never be enough. Now I'm more than enough. I've built something real. Not just dollars and square footage, but the power to choose what my legacy will be. I step out into the rose garden. The petals are jeweled with dew, catching the soft California sunlight. Grandma Eleanor's roses crimson coral and pure white sway gently in the breeze. I close my eyes and for a moment, I almost hear her voice again. Soft, firm, unwavering. True wealth whispers. It's not what you show, it's what you protect. I look back at the mansion's elegant facade, and I know that tomorrow and every day after, this place will stand, not as a trophy, but as a beacon. A place where kids who look like I did, scared, underestimated, unseen, can learn how to build power no one can take away from them. So here's what I want you to remember. Lesson 1. True wealth isn't loud. It's invisible. It's security, freedom, and the quiet strength to walk away from anyone who doubts you. Lesson 2. Patience builds power. Don't be afraid to move slowly, silently, because the right move at the right time can change everything. Lesson 3. Never mistake someone's silence for weakness. Often the quietest person in the room is the one holding all the cards. If you're out there listening, feeling underestimated, dismissed, unseen, remember this. You don't have to prove yourself to anyone who refuses to see your worth. Keep building, keep learning, keep your cards close until the moment comes to lay them all on the table. Because sometimes the most powerful move isn't shouting your victories from the rooftops. It's waiting in silence until the world has no choice but to hear you. And when that day comes, make them listen.